You're gonna get a brutal, honest truth right now. It comes from Darin Van Horn from University of Chattanooga, and he talks about how he's not there to entertain players during the recruiting process, how he requires a brutal transparency from both sides, and all the red flags that will get you crossed off his recruiting list. This is the honest advice that you've been looking for in your recruiting process. So let's go. Thank you for taking the time and thank you for joining me. This is amazing. So tell us, it's a big thing, right? You guys made it to NCAA finals 2 years in a row, right? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yep.
You are a first beach volleyball coach of the whole new program. And so tell me, before you will tell me how this whole thing happened, I will start out of the left field. Tell me, how are you defining success for this season? And how did you define it for last season? And if it's changing, and how are you working with it?
Success to me was always early on just getting better and better. I wanted to compete. Like my whole selling point of this program was, we want to compete and we want to do it with the right people. And, I use the word compete more than anything else because I knew that I didn't think we would win that much as we built the program, right? You got to start from somewhere. And so just how we competed and the ability to want to see success in the sense of like, hey, we're getting better and better and closer to what is the ultimate goal of, we stamped it as wanting to win our conference championship. We felt like in the first 2-3 years, we were pretty competitive in our conference early on. And I think that made it a reality for a lot of those recruits and the crossover kids that I worked with early on, and so for us it was like we want to attain this, and we felt like the first year that we won it, we had the depth, we had the group that had the ability to do it, because I think it was the year before that I had 10 players on the roster.
Wow.
Because we had a coaching change in indoor, and we had a lot of crossover kids, and a lot of those kids didn't want to necessarily come to Beach and miss the opportunity to work with that new coach. So we ended up having a small roster, which I think also fueled us in the next year of like, okay, we have the team, we can do this. And then after the last 2 years, I think, to us, success is to continue to hold the top spot in our conference. And now we're aiming at, people outside of our conference. Like, how can we push other teams that traditionally have had strong programs, and how can maybe we start to win some of those games? And again, just raising the level of how we can compete and where we can compete at.
That's fabulous. How now, in the light of these things, now what UTC Beach stands for? Give us, so if there's a recruit and they never heard of UTC Beach, tell us something about what do you guys stand for? What is that?
Yeah, I think I want people to see us as we compete and we're genuine. I think that's a big thing for me, is just being genuinely yourself. I had a coach that I worked for, and one of his favorite sayings was, I don't recruit character, I recruit characters, which I always kind of took a little bit of that with me. I like character, don't get me wrong, and good people. But, I think having different personalities and different people with different edges and just doing things differently is a good thing. I don't want a cookie cutter of a team, or of an athlete. And so I like the differences, and it sets you up to experience different things during practice, and just in communication styles, learning to go through some of those things. So I want our people to be genuine and just be themselves, and not to say that they're not growing or trying to get better on who they are as an athlete and as a person. But I don't necessarily want them to change. I think a lot of people, one of our things is like, a lot of people, in my opinion, look at all the flaws of people, and I want us to focus on what is that person bringing to the table and helping us be a better team and a better program. And let's focus on that. The other flaws, like obviously you work at and you try to develop those into better situations. But, if we're only looking at those things, then you're not taking that person for who they are and what they do bring to the table. And so we try to focus on some of those things. And that's kind of what I mean by being genuine too.
Yeah, I see. So this is, thank you for that. Thank you for that nice description. I'm going to put a pin on this, okay? Because you mentioned some interesting words, like, I don't want to call them buzzwords, but you said you guys are doing things differently and you don't want a cookie cutter players. So we will get back to that. Okay, because I think this is an important part in a world where these athletes, when people talk about D1, they think top 10 schools, and that's where the world ends, right?
Right.
Besides that, it's just like non-existent for them. So here we are to change that situation, and we're gonna go back to that because there are programs that have the same kind of notion and give a nice description, and you have a very nice way of putting things. So I'm putting big hopes into you. So you're gonna give this wonderful description for the players, what they can become, and that they can be whoever they are at that moment. So, but before that, tell me, how do you build, and not only for me, also for the coaches that have clubs, right? And they have clubs, and they have middle school girls, high school girls, and they are building a club, and they are building the girls for their future career in D1, right? So this, what I'm asking you, is not only from my interest, but also on behalf of these coaches. Give them a little bit of a hint on how to build a team. Not necessarily D1 team like you did, but tell me, what did you come with into this? And how did you build an amazing team in what you started 2019?
Yeah, it was the year of COVID. Well, it was technically our first year. We had 2 weekends, and then the world shut down. So
I see. Okay, so 2019, we're 2025. You've been NCAA finals 2 years in a row, 24 and 25, 23, 24, and 24, 25, right?
Right.
Okay, so you essentially built a D1 team in 3 years. Tell us how you did it.
Well, I think the first thing I had to do was sit down and tell myself what are the most important aspects of this program. At the time, I was indoor assistant coach, but then also leading the beach coach. And I think what it came down to me, and what I'd heard through other grapevines of other programs, is like, one, obviously you got to recruit, even though I didn't have a lot of time to like figure that out, or even have extra time on my hands to go see people. But I think also one of the biggest things I tried to promise to those players that were beach only players is like, hey, I'm still willing to train you all year round. So that meant that I had to do 2 practices in one day. Luckily, I had coaches that were willing to let me do that. They were long days for sure. But I love the sport, and I'm passionate about both. And so I tried to let that show to my players, to show like, hey, this isn't easy, but also like, you just need to have a love of the game. If you love the game, it doesn't feel like that much work, or it'll get you through the tough times of certain days where you're like, oh man, this is a lot. Like, you just think about how much you enjoy the sport. And and also I just wanted, from day one, I wanted to build a program that people wanted to be around. Obviously from a competitive standpoint, but also just like, again, the people you're around make your job more fun and easier, right? So if we're getting the right people, and again, it goes back to the people who love the sport usually are willing to put more effort into it. So that's kind of where I first targeted a lot of things. I think also I was very fortunate enough to have some relationships with some very successful beach coaches, specifically Beth Van Fleet. She did an incredible job of just kind of taking me under her wing, or at least being available to me anytime I had questions and thoughts of how to build the program. She also really helped me make connections with other clubs, and especially in a world where I couldn't get out and see a lot of places, I had to put a lot of trust in the clubs that I was having conversations with, whether it was directors or other coaches. I try to put my faith, I try to get in front of them, and from a clinic standpoint or something, to try to show them what I was about and who I was, and try to build that relationship too. But luckily, I was able to create a lot of good relationships, and I think the beach world in general wants to see the sport grow. So I think everybody was excited to kind of help me, which I owe a lot to a lot of different faces. But that was my goal. Is we want to be competitive, and we want to create a great player experience. And so as we were building that, I just tried to get the right people in place. We actually had my first 2 recruiting class, I think we probably had 4 or 5 kids just stop playing beach volleyball altogether.
Wow.
I can still hang my hat on that. We've never had a transfer out of Chattanooga, but in the first 2 years, I think some of them just realized like, hey, Division I beach volleyball isn't for me, or they wanted just to go. Like I had probably 2 indoor recruits, or they were late to indoor, kind of wanted to go back to indoor, or some of them just decided they wanted to go to a higher academic school because they had that resume. And we supported them. I know those types of decisions happen, and a lot of those kids were recruited late, so I think they were a little indecisive to begin with. But we just tried to be ourselves, be true to who we are. As we built it up, I think one of the other X factors for me was that my wife was willing to help me out so much. She's our assistant coach.
Oh, wow.
And she, by trade, is a mental health counselor / sports psychologist. So we spend a lot of time, especially in the fall, like doing weekly meetings. A lot of times it's wrapped around a book, but I think she does an incredible job of helping develop them into young women, and just being able to communicate well, and what leadership's supposed to look like, and all of those intangible things. I think she does an incredible job with that, and giving them kind of a safe space to have those discussions. I think also just from their perspective, it's nice to have a female to relate to as well, just because they go through things that we probably have never experienced before. Right. So it's good to have her around, and I think it just we focused on those important things, the human aspects, while just trying to get the best talent we could within those parameters. Because again, if I'm doing 2 practices a day, I don't want to be going to a practice where I'm not wanting to be around certain people, right? I just think that's a big part of it. And I know from a D1 or from a college standpoint, we kind of get to handpick some of that. But I also think you can foster that environment of making it enjoyable. Not to say that it can't be intense, or that it can't, be that mindset of wanting to grow and get better and holding people accountable, and every once in a while kicking them in the butt. But overall, you want them to feel like, oh, I enjoy being here. I enjoy being around these people, and then creating that common goal and belief kind of moving forward. So I think there's a little bit of luck sprinkled in there of just, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of players that stuck with me for 4 years and had the belief and the vision that I was trying to give out, and they copied that through the rest of the team as great leaders. So I think that's a big reason why we've had a lot of success recently.
Wow. First of all, that was amazing. That was very exhausting. Second of all, did you study English literature or something? You're so well spoken.
No, thanks. No, I did not. Actually, English was my worst subject. I was more of a math guy.
Oh, I see. But it just adds to your like aura of your personality that I think makes it easier to talk to people and to the girls. It sounds like you guys really care. Like you guys really care about the girls. You guys really care about the sport, and you guys really care about making it a safe space for these girls that come to you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, in some ways we're, I would say, a little bit lucky in this, that there isn't, I would say, this higher pressure of maybe those top 10 schools of like needing to win, or, I don't want to say small margin of separation, because that you could say the same thing about our league. But I think being at a more of a mid-major D1, you don't feel as much of that pressure or that expectation to, have to perform every single year. And maybe some of those schools don't have that, but I feel the support from our university and our admin, to where they're like, hey, do it the way you want to do it, and we support you. And so I think for us, we wanted that to be a big reason of why we do what we do, is the love of the sport, the people you get to be around. But everybody wants to compete. I think everybody wants to win. So, we're all trying to do that. But again, I think I care about the environment and the people, and the joy of coaching really is to watching people develop and accomplishing their own goal. Like it's never, I've always tell people, it's never about me. Like even we won our first championship, and my AD was like, you didn't even run to the pile. And I was like, yeah, I already had a conversation with Juliana before that match of like, if we win, if you're next to me, I'll turn and kiss you, hug you. You're my wife, right? But if you're on the other court far away, I'm just standing here and I'm watching them enjoy it, because that's the joy that I get out of doing what I do, is to watch them succeed and them to enjoy those moments. Like I've had those moments in my career in different places, but I think that's why we love sports, is the camaraderie and the locker room type of aspect. And so to watch for me to get to watch them enjoy it as a group and as a team, I think that's the most special thing that you get to experience in sports. So,
wow, I have so many questions. I mean, it sounds, I mean, if I would have a daughter, she's going right there, right now. But so it sounds like you guys have a really good relationship with the whole university. Like they are supportive of you and want to build that program. How is Chattanooga academically? Tell me.
No, we're still a state school, so we have a lot of options academically, a lot of strong majors. I think the success rate is very high, and people finding jobs after they leave Chattanooga. I think the other beauty of our university is, like, it used to be a commuter only school like 50 plus years ago, right? And so the city and the administration are all trying to make it more of a on-campus feel, and and it's become that pretty drastically. Even the 8 years that I've been here, 10 years, I forgot how many years I was here, 10 years that I've been here, like I've seen significant changes. And I think that's also what makes me want to stay, and why I think it's so attractive to other people is, like, you can see the growth happening on campus. Like I tell people all the time, you'll see a bunch of construction, but that's a huge positive. It just means that, like, more and more money is coming in. There's no ceiling to what we're doing. And I think that's what makes it so exciting. And that kind of got off the academic side, but I think that also applies to the academic side too, of like our business building got remodeled twice in the whole time that I've been here. So, there's just like a lot of great opportunities, and a lot of our players, study exercise science, or they try to get into the medical route by going some different biology or nursing or chemistry. So there's just a lot of options, and a lot of people finding a lot of success too. We have one player who's doing, criminal justice, and, she was like, there's only like 5 schools that have beach volleyball and criminal justice, so this is why I'm contacting you. And it's like, fair enough. But and they're doing it with amazing grades. I'm fortunate that I don't feel like I need to be on them very often or at all about their academics, and a lot of that is the way I recruit them. But also, I just think the support that we have here is unbelievable. Like, our advisors have been here more years than I have been here, and they genuinely care. Like they will hold you accountable for not doing an assignment, and they're checking on you, at least once a month. They have all this support from we just kind of redid some of that facility down there where there's like a athletic space that it's just for athletes only to do, computer lab, whatever. But I just think you can feel that they care too. In that department, they're not there just like, oh, here we go, I have to deal with another student. It's like they want to see them be successful, and they want to put the resources in front of them to be successful, whether that's having an advisor meeting, or whether that's having I'm blanking on the word for it, but just someone to kind of coach you through your schooling, whether it's a class specifically, or tutor is the word I was looking for. So whether you need tutors, whatever it is, like, I just think everybody in this university from top to bottom genuinely cares about the experience and the success of everybody.
That's fabulous. That sounds so amazing. Did you study at Chattanooga?
No, I actually did my undergrad at Penn State University.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're starting to get into this is very exciting. I think, tell me a little bit, if you can, if your wife allows you, because it's she's working with the girls. How do you foster this environment with her, and in coordination with it, or how do you put the recruiting in this environment? To be honest, it sounds almost like a fairy tale, like a Stardust movie, where you are not really known, and you're starting a team during COVID, right? And so you have this idea, and how were you getting these girls? How were you able to match the girls to your idea from the get-go?
Yeah, I think, when you look at the intangibles or the person in general, I think it's cliche, but I always say something's cliche, and it's a cliche because it stands the test of time. Like, that's why it's a cliche. But, I think everybody's trying to create this family environment, and I grew up with 2 older brothers and a younger sister. And, I look back on my life and my experiences with my family. And, I had an older brother who picked on me almost every day to where, like, I did, he almost tried to make me cry every day, I feel like, but it wasn't out of like not loving, like I'm the closest with him now. Right. So I think the problem is, and some people get it, some people don't, but I think everybody thinks of this idea of a family as if it's easy, or that, I always joke like it's roses and rainbows, and it's absolutely not. It's more about the loyalty and support of each other through tough times, and not being afraid to just be honest and direct. So I think, with that idea in mind, I think the base level of what I need out of players is trust and respect, right? So like, I hope to have greater relationships than that and more detail to those relationships. But I always tell people, like, you need to have trust and respect for me, for your teammates, for the support staff around us. Like, if we don't have that, then what are we building off of, And so I think for me, that's something that I try to look at in the way they interact, from teammates to coaches to even their parents. Like, I think people are crazy if they say, oh, well, I'm not recruiting the parents, I'm recruiting the kid. It's like, yeah, but who's in that kid's ear every day, right? Or how is that kid communicating to, what I would consider an authority figure? Like, if they're going to treat you one way, why would they treat me any differently, right? So I think trying to nail down that idea and what those values are, and then on top of that, like, just finding people that have desire to accomplish something, right? And that can look different for different people, and it might change as your career develops. But if you don't have any desire, like, if you're just out here playing just to play, then that's not really what I'm aiming at. Like, I want to accomplish something hard, and we might fail at it, but anything worth accomplishing isn't going to be easy. So I need you to have a lot of desire to want to accomplish something as a team first, and then even individually. Like, I encourage that, to have individual goals, and they can't be above the team goal, obviously, but if you don't have those things, then, like, I don't see you improving very much. So I need to see something of that. And not, one of my favorite things to ask, and I might be getting ahead of myself here, but one of the things I ask recruits is, like, why do you love beach volleyball? And if they're like, I like being in the sun and the sand, I'm like, that's not the first answer I'd come up with. And not to say that that's not an enjoyable part of the sport, but it's like, that's not the point, right? Like, you can go do that, just go to a beach with your friends and be in the sun and the sand. Like, at what part of beach volleyball, specifically the sport, are you so passionate about? Because I think that's what matters and what keeps you going when it is tough, So I think those are kind of some baselines of things that I try to find within recruits. And some people are good at, having answers ready, and some people are more genuine. But I feel like, not to toot my own horn, but I feel like I can get a good grasp of that with how many conversations we've had over the years,
Hey there. Are you really serious about your D1 dreams? Playing beach volleyball in college? And does this whole recruiting process feels like a black box to you, where you don't really know what to do and what the coaches are looking for? Well, you're not the only one, but I may have a solution for you. But before we'll get to that, let me ask you, are you really serious about your dreams? Because if yes, then you need to step up and take ownership of your actions. And the best way to do it is get out and start researching information. Now, there's not much information about this whole process and what coaches are looking for, is there? Well, so for this exact reason, I created this library of conversations with D1 beach coaches, so you can learn and understand what are their green flags, what are their red flags, what are they looking for, who they really want on the team, who they really don't want on the team. And all this information will help you triangulate yourself and navigate this process with much more confidence and with success at the end. You can find me on YouTube or become a part of my community directly. You get way more information as a part of the community, but YouTube will do fine. So what you waiting for? Get in, I'll see you on the inside, and let's navigate the process with confidence. And if you need more help, just contact me and I'll help you figure out how to make your dreams come true. All right? So let's go.
Were you always a good people reader, or did your wife help you work on that?
No, I think I've always been good at that, because my mom was big on, like, put yourself in their shoes first before you make a decision or come to a conclusion. Like, you don't know until you know. And so I think I've always been more of a listener, more of, like, just taking in information, than I have been like person trying to be out in front. Like even when I was growing up, people were like, you're going to be a coach one day. And I was like, I don't like telling people what to do. I don't want to tell you to have to go run laps or like, I was always a leader of like, by example, like I just take care of myself. I do, not that I didn't care about my teammates, but I was like, I'll put it on me to perform, or I'll put it on me to be better for you guys versus like, I want to boss people around. But later on in life, I figured out that, coaching isn't just bossing people around, obviously. But I think that's, I pay attention to a lot of personalities, a lot of different people. And I just try to figure out why they are the way they are, because that's interesting to me, I guess. My wife probably more helped me become a better communicator, which I think most wives do probably with their husbands. But I think also even just communicating with the players as females, I think you can treat them the same as male athletes, but there are certain aspects that I think create better scenarios or create better communication because of just personality or just having a female aspect to it. Like, I know that even the US says like in their training, like women will bond before they fight together, whereas men will fight to bond together, right? So like it's just
that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's just simple ideas like that, and having the perspective of both. I mean, there's been times where I've gotten so frustrated with a player because I feel like I'm telling her something, and then I go to Juliana and I'm like, you have to go talk to her. Like I don't know what to say anymore. And she would go say something and everything would be fixed. And I'm like, what did you say differently? She's like, it's not really that I said anything different. It's just the way I communicated it to her. I was like, all right. So I think she's helped me grow in a lot of ways from that perspective. But that I don't know. I think we both just genuinely enjoy getting to know people and meet people and figure out their why and help them on their journey as much as we can. So
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think so thank you for sharing that. And I think it's a very beautiful message for the girls to hear that. It's like hearing that in this high performance world, which might be a peak of career for majority of the girls, right? There is someone who genuinely cares about them. I think it just fosters this feeling of, okay, I'm not alone.
Right.
In this fight, I have helped somebody who really cares about me, and I can just relax a little bit. I don't have to put the whole weight of the world on my shoulders right from the get-go, right when I'm 18. So thank you for that. Now, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just saying, yeah, I agree. And I think too, I don't know if this is just from me being around female sports for so long now, or just being a coach in general, but like I joke with them that I'm not the same personality as a coach as I am as a player. I'm like the complete opposite, because as a coach, I try to be more calm and supportive, especially in high intense moments, because I don't want them to take on the personality of me of feeling like it's chaotic, or that, I want to feel calm, or I want them to feel they can be calm around me, because that's how I want them to perform. And not that I don't want them to play with emotion, or, everybody has their own unique way of playing, but, I don't want them to ever look at me and start to panic because they see me a certain aspect, So I try to be kind of even keel for them. Whereas when I'm a player, like I'm talking, I'm jumping around, I'm being kind of chaotic on purpose in a lot of ways. So I try to, I think that's another thing that, maybe, I don't know if it's gotten overlooked or it just isn't talked about enough, is like, I mean, I just feel like the human dynamic is that you're supposed to work within a community. And, if you don't have that support from other people when times are high or low, then, you're probably not getting the best out of the players. And that was always my goal too, is just, I want to get the best version of you, because that's what you're chasing, right? So like whatever, I don't coach everybody the same. I'm the same fair wise, but I don't coach everybody the same, because not everybody needs the same thing. So that's why I take the time to get to know them too. Is like, what's going to trigger you to bring the best version of yourself, because that's what I need, and that's what we need, and that's what you want ultimately. So how can we find that, within the parameters of what is best for the team? But, that's our ultimate goal as coaches, right? Is to just create the best player possible that they could be.
This is fabulous. Let me ask you right now about that. You said you take time to spend with the girls to see and figure out what triggers them. How do you do that? How do you, in your extremely busy schedule, right? Like, it's always something. You guys are not stopping. It's either watching videos or meeting with players one-on-one or or prepping for practice or doing this and that, scouting. So how do you do that? Just,
Yeah. I think it just comes back to me deciding what it is that I think is most important. Because when I was coaching indoor and beach, like I had 7 things on my list of things I thought could help the program, right? And I had to narrow it down to 3 because I only had time for 3 of those things. Whereas this past year we've separated the programs. Now maybe I can get to 5 and 6 and 7. But again, I feel like the relationship side of things is the most important one. So if that means I don't get to watch film, or I don't get to go out on a recruit visit, or like go, do a clinic, whatever, because I need to be here, and it's only me. Like my wife is my assistant, but she has a full-time job. Like she's not, around doing all these little things in the office and things like that. So it's only me here. And so I think for me, it's just, I've got to be intentional about staying to the things that built us to the where we are, even though I do have a little bit more time, but also like knowing that those things were most important to me in the beginning, and it's what helped us be successful. So for me, like if I have to have meetings with the players, 3, like having actual sit down meetings with every player 3 times a semester, or, just taking an extra 15 minutes after practice, just, picking their brain, or, I think also between me and my wife, like we find different sides of things of like how we're helping them, right? Where hers maybe is more like personal to being a female in college and juggling a bunch of things, whereas mine maybe more at times the volleyball side of things, but kind of being able to combine those two and then getting them to trust both of us in different avenues too, I think is important. And I think, I've had players that thought it was like not a good thing to be in the coach's office, where I'm like, no, I want you here, because now we get into conversations that, and we try to dig deeper than just surface level conversations, right? Like, what's going on with your family, what's going on in life. And, I think for us, we just want to be a sounding board of like, hey, do you just need to complain today? Then go ahead and complain. Like, I'm not going to side. I might not side with you every time, but I'm going to say, hey, I understand that it's been a rough day, whatever. Or, like showing empathy instead of sympathy is fine, right? Like I don't want to be sympathetic towards you, but I want to be empathetic. Like I understand it's okay. Like, but if these are the things you want to accomplish, this is the direction we need to go, right? So I think, again, it also comes from us, I think, as leaders, to be that with them as well, being, being transparent, having some humility. Like, I know I'm not perfect. Juliana's not perfect. Like, we mess up sometimes, or we, don't make the right decision, or, something comes up in life and we're just not ourselves. Like, I think for us to be transparent to the players, it allows them to feel like they can be transparent with us. It's like, we're human too, right? It's not like, oh, we're this being as just because we're a coach that, we're above you, or, obviously there's a level of rules, but like we are all human and we can have these conversations. And I just think that the greater and deeper the relationship, the better the outcome of, competing and feeling confident. Right. So, I just try to take the time to talk to them. And some people talk more than others. I think that's also something that sometimes is overlooked. Like some players will be like, well, you talk to her all the time. It's like, yeah, because she wants to talk to me and she comes up to me. You just stand over there and don't talk to me. Right? And it's like, and that's okay. Like, I'm not viewing you as 2 different people, right? Like, you just aren't that talkative, and that's fine. And she can't stop talking. So like, it doesn't mean that I'm spending more time with one or the other. It's just like, they just haven't stopped talking, and I think, again, that is part of my job too, as people in college, is like getting them to understand different personalities in different ways. So like, even when I talked about the trust and respect, it's like, I have a sister-in-law who will not give you an ounce of trust and respect until you've earned it. But my brother, who married her, will give you all the trust and respect until you give him a reason not to give it to you, right? So like, there's just different ways people go about life, and better understand that. And, I think is ultimately what sets you up for life in general too, of just better understanding people and understanding that, hey, not everybody's the same as me, but that's what's beautiful in this world too. So, but again, it just goes back to being able to spend the time and help it and foster them to feel comfortable in having conversations with you to really dig deeper,
Wow, Darin, there's this quote. I'm going to butcher it. You probably
That's okay.
He was a mathematician, but his imagination was not wild enough. So he became an artist, or a poet, something like that, and now everything is fine. So now when I'm listening to you and I'm just trying to put it together, how actually the studies, the undergrad math studies at Penn State look like, because you have this very broad and very deep philosophical range. You mentioned now a few times certain, how to say that, certain values, core values and character traits. So if you can put it in a comprehensive package, nice, concise, what would be, from your standpoint, the core values and non-negotiable characters that would define who a Mox is, who is a UTC beach player?
Yeah, I think, I think back on, I've listened, I can't remember if it was a book or a podcast. I think it was kind of like a podcast, but I love hockey. Hockey is actually my favorite sport of all time, and I never played it, but there was a hockey coach who took over a team at the D1 level, and he had a lot of experience. He was an NHL coach, but he flipped the program into winning a national championship in 3 years.
Wow.
And one of the things that stood out to me in listening, I mean, there was a lot of great pieces, but one that stood out to me is like, you want to get the other teams or other people who watch your team to say these things. If they say these things, those core values are who you are. If you're just telling them these things, that doesn't mean they're embodying them. So you try to get the outsiders to say what it is you are, right? And so, I hope that people watching us, see us as competitive. And when I throw the word out, competitive, this always makes me laugh too. It's like, competitive doesn't mean that you just want to win. Everybody wants to win. Competitive is like a level of resilience of like, how far are you willing to go to win, and how many times will you be knocked down and get back up, type of thing, right? So when I say competitive, I want people to think like, man, they wouldn't give up, or they had a bad outing, but they turned it around and they fought back, or like this resilience to continue to want to grow, and in the result, right, like throughout the process and result, you tend to win, right? So that competitiveness or that resilience to your mind, I think also just the selflessness and I guess just passion for the sport and people. Like, obviously there has to be a level of selflessness within our sport because it's just you and one other partner. So one of you is going to struggle, most likely one of you that will probably do well. And so the selflessness of wanting to see your teammates perform and do well. And I think that's important. And I explain all of these words because I feel like you can take them a lot of directions, right? So like when I'm talking about selflessness, I want to see that you are trying to get the best out of your teammate, right? Or trying to take them somewhere better and celebrating their victories just as much, if not more than your own, right? And so because I think that's important to the dynamic of a relationship. So those are like some of the biggest things that pop out to me. But again, being passionate about the sport and showing so much love to the sport is important too, because it's what gets you through the hard times. And but I think those are kind of like the two overarching things that I try to find. Kind of, what are you as an athlete competing, and then what are you as a human being, and how you interact with others. And you can do that in a lot of different ways, but ultimately, if you care about the successes of others, you care about the successes of teams, right? And so, and then competing wise, like if you're resilient enough not to give up, the rest should come at some point. In my opinion, obviously there's a level of athleticism to the game, but if you have those two pieces, I think you can find yourself being very successful.
Wow, it sounds like this, and I think you said amazing thing that you are actually describing each of these words because can be understood differently. Without you explaining your perception or understanding of the competitiveness, I would take it as a normal, we just want to win. But as it comes across now, I feel like it's more of the inner culture or the inner competitiveness against being in a steady state, if you know what I mean, like constantly competing and pushing myself out of the comfort zone and trying to grow in a way that is, desired by me or what is necessary for the team. That's how it's coming across. So
yeah, I would say you nailed it.
Sorry?
I said I would say you nailed it then. Yeah, that's kind of what I aim for. And sometimes that competitiveness is just an eager to learn too, right? Which you kind of talked about, and just the getting out of your comfort zone. It's not easy to do. And, I think kind of tying that in, like one year we had 3 C's, and for the C that we have in Chattanooga, the Power C, and it was confident, competitive, and consistent. And I think the confidence, when I think about, everybody wants to play with confidence, right? But confidence comes from being consistent and being comfortable, but you only get that consistent and comfortable by attacking uncomfortable situations, right? So then like everybody wants confidence, but I actually want to see you feel uncomfortable and still do whatever it is you're doing, even in an uncomfortable or maybe less confident space. Like you might not be confident to go do this, but you're willing to put yourself out there to try to do it even when you aren't confident. And I think that's also a big sign of like who you are willing to be and what you're doing and being willing to grow. Like we have recruits all the time, and they were really shy and didn't say much. And I'm like, okay, that's true. Or, they would come out and they would stutter and they would, have to correct their words. And like, you can tell they're nervous, but they're still willing to try to put themselves out there. So to me, it's like, you were nervous, that's fine. Or you stuttered, that's fine. Like, I'm not judging you on that one moment. I'm more impressed that you're willing to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable in that moment, even if you didn't execute it perfectly, right? Because that's ultimately what's going to happen, is you're going to get put in a situation you didn't execute well, or you're not executing well. And it's like, are you still willing to work on that, even though it doesn't feel good? Or are you going to be like, well, I'll just stick to what I'm good at because I'm confident in those areas, right? Like, I think that's kind of, I know we talk about the uncomfortable and the confidence a lot, but I think it's an interesting intertwined situation that you try to understand, I guess.
It is, and you're right, and I think it also speaks volume to you, again, to your personality and to the space that you create, because even though people are doing what they are uncomfortable, it needs to be on a foundation and a basis of a safe space, right? If I'm not feeling safe, I would not put myself in that situation, right? And I bet the girls. But if I have someone in front of me, like yourself, who gives me this ability and empowers me to do that, that is where the real growth happens, because suddenly I'm not afraid. All the little traumas or big traumas that I had to went through or carry with me are just, a little smaller somehow. And I feel like I can all of a sudden let myself be myself. So thank you for that. Thank you for doing that for the girls. So let's go to, it was a nice introduction. It was really going into the roots and into the canvas of how you are building the program and what your idea is. Now, if you can go 30,000 foot view on your recruiting process. And now let's dive into the recruiting process itself. When do you start? How do you start? What is your idea? What kind of player you're looking for? How do you look for them? How do you tell whether the culture there in a culture piece will fit? How do you recruit that parent piece that you talked about? And I think it's really important, all those things, how they act to their parents is probably way how they will act towards their teammates or towards you, right? So let's do it. Let's go. 30,000 feet. When do you start? When do you start with the girls? How do they contact you? How do you contact them?
Yeah, so I would say my process is changing slightly as we speak, just because I was really late in recruiting the last couple of years, to be honest. And in some ways, I think that somewhat benefited me just because of how much commitment I had to indoor and, my ability to get out and see players and feel confident, pulling the trigger on recruiting them. So a lot of times, I wasn't even having people on visits until the fall of their senior year. I might have one, maybe 2 kids that I got committed into the spring of their junior year, but I had a lot of late additions, and I think it wasn't a bad thing, because I think in this sport, there's so many skills that you need to be able to do to perform well. And, there was even, I think, a lot of kids who were more indoor kids that maybe weren't getting the looks they wanted in indoor and decided, oh, you know what, I do want to do beach and I do love this sport. And, maybe we're a little more athletic, but just kind of late to the game. And so I think that benefited me. And I think in some ways I'll still try to do that. But now I would say, like, my aim is to just kind of see more faces, more people, and get out myself more to kind of show myself, but also just to see those recruits. And so, this year was the first year that I felt like I had eyes on the 27 class as they kind of were either getting into that June 15th date or just shortly afterwards, where normally like I might start having a few phone calls, but it might be like 5 kids. And then, you know, if it works out, it does great. But then it's like, I'm still having phone calls for the first time into people's senior years. Right. And so I think, you know, I'm still keeping that door open because I think there are a lot of good people that get into the sport late or develop late because now they've got a chip on their shoulder. And, you know, it's like, okay, like I'm out there to prove to everybody that I was worth recruiting, even though you didn't recruit me. And I think they find a little bit something about themselves and it sticks to them. Right. So I think I'll always keep that door open too, a little bit. But I think, you know, at this point, I'm trying to, you know, see people a little bit earlier. Plus, you know, I think also everybody's big desire is to go to a top 10 school, right? Like when they're coming out the gates, they're like, I want to get recruited. And some people have a better lens, a better perspective because someone's really real with them or they just are very real with themselves. But, you know, so I might not recruit those kids till they get a realization anyway of like, hey, top 10 school is not where you're landing type of thing. But I would say, you know, I'm just trying to get eyes on as many people as I can. You know, now we're trying to get onto phone conversation. I did a lot of emails, honestly, too. Like a lot of my recruiting in the past, it came down to emails that I just saw a video and I was like, oh, this kid looks like she could be pretty good. Then moved to a conversation on the phone, or, you know, it was a lot of trust in some of those club directors that I had built relationships with to be honest with me about what they thought about that person and where they thought they could land. And fortunately enough, we have a couple of pretty good clubs, I would say, around us. So, you know, there was a lot of potential to get people who have been developed a lot, or, you know, just having a lot of raw talent around us because, you know, we have good athletes in Tennessee or Georgia. You know, you just need to get some coaching. So, you know, but I also don't want to like limit our recruiting to this area, right? Like I want to reach out to California. I want to reach out to Florida. I want to get into Virginia and North Carolina. And you know, I don't think we've had anybody from Texas yet, but, you know, I'm happy to get somebody from Texas or even from Indiana. You know, like I think there's just, again, the beauty is in like finding the right people that fit your culture and your program, and not everybody has to look the same, right? So again, just kind of a broader picture though of just, I think the emails are a big thing. I think the video is a big thing, and then just me trying to get into those clubs and try to see as many people as possible.
I see. That's amazing. So you mentioned it at the beginning, and I said I'm going to put a pin on that. You were saying that you are doing things differently, and that you were not looking for a cookie cutter type of players. So can you elaborate on that right now? I think it's a good time for that.
Yeah, I don't think I want to limit myself to looking for specific things all the time. You know, like the other side of it too is if you're fully polished and you're a great setter, you're a great passer, you're a great hitter, you're a great digger, like you have size, like you can score well, like you're probably not coming to me. Like you probably have established yourself as somebody who's going to go to a higher level, right? So like I've learned this from other coaches too that maybe are at a mid-major level or even some of the D2 levels that are good indoor teams. It's like you're going to have to find the kid that has something about her, right? Like something stands out to you. But there's probably going to be 1 or 2 flaws that you have to decide, can I correct these flaws or can I help these flaws not be as big, right, when they get here? Like how can you help develop some of those things, right? So I think that's why I don't view it as a cookie cutter thing, because it's like, first I just want to figure out, well, what stands out about you? Is it your resilience, competitiveness? Is it, you know, you're big and tall and you can hit a ball but you can't pass? Is it, you know, you're a great defender and you get a lot of transition plays but you're not putting balls away? Like I think I'm trying to find the thing about you and your personality, like what makes you you and what makes you have an edge, right? And then let's dive into like, okay, well, here's the areas that aren't, you know, as strong for you, and do we think we can develop those areas, or do we think that we can make those areas strong enough at our level? And so I think that's kind of how I view recruiting. And again, like I recruited a kid, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind me telling you, but I recruited a kid. Her name was Kay Gresham out of Atlanta. And if you looked at this girl's Instagram, you'd have been like, well, she's got a big personality and, you know, just like kind of off the wall different, right? But I got on the phone with her and it felt like I was talking to an adult and a very mature human being. And I was like, your Instagram would have never told me that this is the way this conversation would have went, right? So, but in hearing her story and her family and her and feeling the maturity of her, don't get me wrong, she still was her goofball self at times and just being different. But we embraced that, and I could tell that the culture side and I mean, she was 5'11", and I didn't have many kids on this team that were 5'11" with long arms, so I was like, that helps me, right? That physicality point. But I could tell deeper that person would fit the mold of or the culture of what I'm trying to create, right? So like, again, that's why it's not like a cookie cutter thing. It's not like I look at that person and I'm like, oh, she carries herself this way, or she does this. And I just think, again, a blend of personalities and people is important. Or like, I don't want everybody to be 5'10" and be pretty solid across the board. Like, then how do we challenge ourselves in practice? Like, I could take a 6-foot person who maybe doesn't have the ball control, but now while you're figuring that out, let's use you as a blocker, right? And just get in front of some of these players that they don't see big blocks in practice very often. Or maybe you're a great defender and it's like, work that player to death to make her figure out how to score, So like, having different styles of plays and different strengths, I think, is important. And I'm sure a lot of coaches have that, but I think it's just that's why I'd say not like a cookie cutter, or it's not like every defender has to look like this to me, or every blocker has to look like this to me, or every split. Like, I'm only taking on a chance on this split. Like, I think it's just more for me about finding your it factor. Like, what is it about you? And can you help us, and do you want to grow and get better? Like, that's part of it, right? Like, it's here's your flaws. Like, how badly do you want to fix these things, or how badly do you want to chase being good at our level? Because I can try to help you get there, but if you don't have that desire to get there, then why would I recruit you?
Did you like this conversation? It was pretty good, wasn't it? I have more for you. I have conversations with D1 coaches, experts, and all the tools and guides and whatever you can think of to succeed on your D1 journey and fulfill your D1 dreams. So what you waiting for? Jump right in, and I'll see you on the inside. And if you need more help, just contact me and I'll help you make your dreams come true. All right? Until later.